Hello, hello, and welcome to Work Should Feel Good, the show where your career growth meets your real life. I'm your host, Diana Alt, and today my guest, Kelly Greene, and I are going to dig into all things resilience. Kelly is a certified health and wellness coach who focuses on helping professionals cultivate holistic resilience through health coaching and psychotherapy. Kelly's a recovering attorney, having practiced law in Tennessee for over 15 years. A few years ago, she realized that she'd rather help clients as a health professional than a legal professional and returned to college, earning a master's degree in psychology from Harvard University. She's licensed to practice psychotherapy in Tennessee and has additional training and credentials in things ranging from safe and sound protocol to hypnosis to the Enneagram, giving her a broad toolkit to address physical and psychological health challenges with her clients. Kelly is a born teacher and serves as a part-time master's program lecturer in forensic psychology. She also does workshops of all kinds, including one we're going to hear about a little later. And I've done a couple of Kelly's workshops in the past on topics, so you do not want to miss out that opportunity if you're interested in her topic. Welcome to the show, Kelly. How are you?
I'm good. And I apologize for my voice. I am recovering from bronchitis. So I'm a little scratchy, but
that's okay. Do you have some tea in that mug that we saw earlier?
I have something hot. It's not tea.
That works.
It's coffee. It's decaf coffee. But yeah, it will help. And the only just minor update I will make to that awesome intro, thank you for the awesome intro, is that I am pending licensure as a psychotherapist. So I am practicing psychotherapy as I am allowed to, as I am pending licensure, but I will be pending licensure for quite some time until I have enough hours for full licensure.
All right. Well, thank you for straightening that out. There's a lot of, it's so interesting how different fields are.
Oh yeah.
Because like there are fields when like medicine, psychotherapy, etc., where you have to have every I dotted and T crossed. I almost crossed my T's and dotted, crossed my I's and dotted my T's. And then there's other ones where like I'm a coach. I mean, I have some certifications, but I coached for like 7 years before I ever got a certification. So
licensure processes are so different. Even for different professions within the state, it was easier to get a law license. Super easy to get my law license. I mean, obviously you had to take the bar, pass the bar. Beyond that, not really difficult. It is more difficult, in my opinion, to get my psychotherapy license than it was ever to get my law license.
How do you feel about that? Does that seem right?
No, it's really frustrating. I'm not going to lie. And I don't know if I am frustrated from I think it's too much on the therapy side, or I think it's too less on the law side, right? It's probably somewhere in between, where you probably needed a bit more from a clinical, a practical standpoint to get your law license than you did, because really you only had to have taken the bar, have a JD, pass the bar.
Take the bar, and that's it, right?
Pass the background check and all that, and you get a license. Whereas in therapy, you still have to have your coursework, you still have to pass tests, and then you have to have thousands of clinical hours before you can get a license. So
like how many thousands? Tell me about that.
For marriage, I know. For marriage and family therapists, it's 1,000 clinical hours plus 200 or 300 supervision hours. For licensed professional counselors, which is a different purview, you have to have, I believe it's 3,000 clinical hours or 1,500. I think it's closer to 3,000. It's crazy. But for law,
you basically
you don't have to have any. Nothing. You don't have to have done an internship. Now, I did before I had my law license. I did an internship and actually practiced on a temporary license before I received my law license, but that wasn't required. But anyway,
wild stuff, crazy.
That was a long time
ago. And like, you think about medicine. People are like gray haired by the time they get done with all of their residencies and post fellowships and all the things. So it's funny because I'm having surgery in July. And when you look at a surgeon's background, and you realize like they're the same age as me, but they've only really been like a full surgeon for like 12 years because it took for freaking ever. So anyway, well, congratulations on doing all of that. And guys, when you hear like 3,000 hours, that's not like just assuming 40 hours a week, right? That is therapeutic hours, right? You have to track that many.
Yeah.
So
I am doing the marriage and family track because I align with that ideology a bit more because it's a family systems sort of ideology. And so I need to get 1,000 clinical hours and 200 or 300 supervision hours. And that's on top of the internship and practicum I had while doing coursework. So I think I have currently I'm at about 1,000 hours and I have about 800 more to go. Yeah.
Wow. That's so much. Well, so you've done a lot of things. You're a recovering attorney.
Yeah.
You worked in title, you worked in business law, you worked in entertainment law, just in that. You also have other things. Like I used a makeup brush earlier today that you designed or marketed or something.
Yeah. So that's my first.
What led you to wander through so many career paths and feel comfortable trying them? So many people feel like they have to do this thing forever.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that I've never had that feeling of like, this is it. Like I have to do this forever. But I started my career in makeup, and it was just kind of by happenstance. I got a job at a makeup counter. I loved doing makeup. It was so much fun. It was in my 20s, and I just grew in that industry and became a pretty successful hair and makeup artist. I wasn't a cosmetologist, so I wasn't cutting and coloring, but hair and makeup artist in the music industry here in Nashville for about 10 years. And I did that while I went to law school. So while I was doing hair and makeup, I traveled all around. I've been to most award shows doing hair and makeup backstage. And I loved it. It was so much fun. It was a great, 20s career. I did that from, 20 to 30-ish. And it was fantastic. I knew it was not, it fed the creativity part of me, but it did not feed the intellectual part of me. So I knew it was not the final frontier for me, but it was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
It was super
wild. I feel like I've never been good at makeup, and I finally got good, decent. We'll call it decent, not good, at doing my makeup because of TikTok. Because how many get ready with me's? I'm like, oh, I finally learned how to contour based on like repeated exposure to awesome. A million different. And the thing that was the light bulb for me is somehow I got on the side of TikTok where it wasn't 22-year-olds doing the makeup, but it was like 48-year-olds saying like, this is what you need to do because you don't have the skin you did when you were 22. So
it's true.
It's wild stuff. So did I miss any career paths that you went through? Because like hair and makeup, law,
those are the millions of kinds. I've had crazy jobs. I was, I like to call myself the temporary or substitute sanitational engineer for my high school. That means that I was the janitor for a moment in high school. I've had crazy jobs, 1,000 crazy jobs, and but those are the career pieces are makeup, law, and psychology.
Wow. What led you? So like 2021, you and I were in a mastermind together because you had this brilliant plan that you were going to do this online legal course and community and all the things. And then in the middle of the year, you just decided to burn it down.
I burnt it down.
So can you tell us a little bit about, because this is the kind of thing that like you and I have known each other for a long time. So I was kind of walking with you through a lot of this burn it down thing. But so many people are terrified of that because, really it's sunk cost fallacy if you get down into it. But talk about the decision to burn it down and to rebuild, because you're basically a career phoenix right now with your new your new psychotherapy, health coaching thing. What happened to you emotionally? And then what was going on practically when that decision to change came about?
I'll give you a teeny tiny moment of background that led up to that. So from the time I was 12 was when I had my first autoimmune flare up, if you want to call it. We didn't know what it was back then, to like these sporadic situations and or flare ups throughout my adolescence, 20s, 30s. Had a baby at 37, was deathly sick at 38, didn't think I was going to live. I mean, just, autoimmune after autoimmune after autoimmune, like really sick for years and years and years. 2020 for me, the easiest thing I endured in 2020 was COVID.
Right.
So that was the easiest part of my year. And I was like, I call myself the COVID OG, right? I had COVID before there was a vaccine, and it was terrible. And I was on my back for 10 days. It was, and that was the easiest part of my 2020. 2020 was rough. Had some family stuff come up, psychological events that were just terrible, just truly terrible. And I got sick again. Like my body was sick again. And it was the first time in my life that I'd ever thought, I wonder if my physical issues are tied to my psychological events. Like life hits too much, stress is too much, all of this. And now I'm hurting from head to toe again. Right.
Yeah.
I'd had 1,000 diagnoses. So anyway, all that to say is I began a journey 2020, 2021 of understanding who I was, what was happening with me. And so during the time that you and I met, I was in that journey, right? I hadn't come to that full realization in that moment. And so I was practicing law. I owned a title agency and a entertainment business law firm. And I had an idea, just because I've represented a lot of business clients, to do a course to teach entrepreneurs how to set their businesses up legally, because I was doing it for so many people. And I wasn't super passionate about it, but I also wanted them to have the information. So that's how you and I met, right? Because I was trying to learn this online space. How can I get this information out to folks? I wasn't super happy in my legal career. So I thought, well, maybe this is the switch I need to make, right? Is I'm going to put these courses out. All of that to say, I read a book around that time. It was in 2020 that I had read the book. I thought I had a copy. I was going to hold it up. I do. Cured. And Cured is
that one.
by Dr. Jeffrey Rediger. He's an assistant professor of psychiatry at Harvard Med. And in his book, he chronicles about a 20-25 year fascination of his of studying spontaneous remission. What makes people get cured or get better from chronic or terminal illness. And I'm not ruining it for you, because this book's amazing. And all these, there's tons of stories in here. It's fascinating. But in short, he was able to identify a connection between identity and autoimmune, or identity and immunity in general. Anecdotally, but he also mentions, he talks about a lot of studies in there. That is the first time I thought, I wonder if what's happening in my body is rooted in maybe childhood or stress or life, beyond my biology, right?
Spending your life the wrong way.
Right. Beyond genes. And so I dove in for myself and started reading more about this. And I started not knowing what I was doing at the time, as I was learning to cultivate holistic resilience, which we'll get to. But I got better. Physically, my body was feeling better. Everything was feeling better.
What were you doing though? Like, what are some of the things?
I started therapy. Number one thing is I started therapy. And I didn't start therapy because I wanted to deal with my past or because I was physically sick. I started therapy because I just had some life events happen that I needed help with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through that process that I started diving into how I grew up, my past, my tendencies to people please, my tendencies to be everything to too many people.
Mm-hmm.
And so through that realization, I started learning signals in my body that were indications that I was doing too much or not living, in a way that was aligned with where I needed to be. So then that led me into eating better, right? Drinking more water. I mean, some of the basic things that you just sometimes you don't feel like doing when you feel like crap, right?
Yeah.
And I started spending more time in nature. I started noticing things that made me experience awe. I started learning how to regulate my thoughts and my emotions. There were just a myriad of just things kind of speckled throughout. I started thinking more about meaning and purpose and wondering what was meaningful to me and what was not meaningful to me and why it was meaningful or not meaningful. And so there was just all of these different areas of life I just started diving into and working on. And I got better mentally, physically. I felt better. And I knew I just hated practicing law.
What's so interesting about this is you were taking all these steps, and at the same time, you would go to the office and deal with this law practice that you had that you didn't like. And you were doing real estate title as part of your work, right? Which is a whole nightmare.
It is a nightmare. It
All
is.
by itself. It's the opposite of what I know of you to be. Very detail oriented, extremely time sensitive, highly emotional for everybody involved, whether it's the purchaser, the seller, the real estate agent. There's hence drama galore in all of that. And yet you were still making strides. I think that's really important because a lot of people that are in a job that they hate or other major situation that they hate, they let that consume them utterly. And there becomes a perspective that we can't do anything about it. The only thing that we can do is what we've always known. But man, you can always drink an extra glass of water, people.
Yeah. And I will say that that mindset is not foreign to me.
Me either.
I lived that. So I mean, for many, I practiced law for many, many, many years that I was like, this is it for me. I've spent all this time and money to get a law degree. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out how to love it, make a lot of money, or this is it. Like you can't keep changing your career, Kelly. And then, doing the work that I did on myself, I was like, why not? What? I mean, I was in my 40s. I'm not, I'm feeling there were days, especially when my daughter was around a year old. I mean, I didn't think I would see her turn 2. I was so sick. I mean, I've had more than 1 near-death experience. I was not well at all. And fast forward to just 5-6 years later, and I feel like there's no reason I can't live to 100 or beyond. Like I have no fear of dying of an autoimmune disease before she grows up. None. That's gone. But it's because somewhere in there, my beliefs changed, and not just my thoughts. It was my thoughts, my emotion, my behavior. Like I changed at the core level, and I realized, what does it matter if I change careers again? if it
Yeah,
makes
like
me
says
happy
who?
and healthy, and I live
Yeah.
another 50 years, and I graduate with a PhD at 50, whatever, who gives a rat's ass? Like,
Yes.
fantastic. Good for me. Like,
Yes.
what does that matter?
I have a family member that is getting her ED this summer. She'll be 52 when she gets it.
Yeah, fantastic.
So she's like collecting degrees now.
I love it.
And it's funny because she often felt like she was the dumb child in her family
Mm,
because she just has different aptitudes. Her intelligence shows up differently, all those kinds of things. And so now she's going to be the highest degreed person in her whole family, which I think is pretty badass.
I love it.
I'm here for that.
Mhm.
I'm a kind of a hold my beer sort of girl. Like, oh, you think I can't? Oh, really? Or you think I shouldn't? I cannot be controlled. I am an Enneagram 8, which we'll get into some of that a little bit more in a minute. So, so you burn down the whole thing to focus on your new path. And then you went like straight for the top. There's no like,
Mhm.
I'm going to do my degree at
Mhm.
the state school right around me,
Mm-mm.
which you would have if you hadn't gotten into another school.
Sure.
But you just said, hey, we're going to do Harvard.
Mhm.
That is something a lot of people are scared to do as well. They think they're not good enough or they think it would be too hard to do that. What made you have the courage to say, not only am I doing this, I'm going to do it at basically one of the top schools on the planet?
As I was getting better and learning more about the importance of processing your past, whether or not you feel like it's affecting you or not, um, and I was getting better and I was healing and I was feeling good and I wanted to share that with others. I did not want to be one of the folks, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's just that they did not speak to me in the way that people who had evidence did. I did not want to be one of the folks that taught purely out of experience.
Got it.
It was really important to me that if I'm teaching you about, how to feel better, how to heal, how to cultivate resilience, how to be psychologically and physiologically strong, that it wasn't just like, this is what I did and now you follow my 5 points, that I wanted evidence. I wanted to know the science. Is there a scientific reason for why I was getting sick, even though I didn't have, never had clinical signs of depression or anxiety or PTSD. And for all intents and purposes, you would look at me and go, this is not someone who is surviving. This is someone who is thriving. You would never look at me and go, there's not a physician that I went to for 30 years of autoimmune disease that said, hey, do you think maybe this might have a psychological root?
Yeah.
There was never a therapist that I went to and said, gosh, you're sick. Do you think this might have a psychological root? So I needed to go to Harvard because when I wanted to know if there was science out there to support what had happened to me. And so that was reason number one for going to Harvard, is because I wanted to go to a school that was so focused on science and research, and not just experiential moments, right?
Vibes.
Number one. Number two, I had wanted to go to Harvard since I was a little girl. When I was a little girl, I never dreamed in a million years that I could be smart enough to go to Harvard. Now, I always made good grades. I got a full ride into my undergrad program. I knew I was smart, but I never thought I was Harvard smart. And I just wanted to go to Harvard. And so I had noticed online, when I was researching psychology programs, that Harvard had a continuing education department that, school, part of their arts and sciences school that allowed folks to do degrees on a hybrid basis. So I was able to do part of my coursework. Now, what is different about Harvard's extension program is that it is not all asynchronous. I didn't take any asynchronous courses. So all courses that were online were live, like attendance was taking, you showed up. And then I had to take 12 hours of my courses in person. So I had to live on campus for a summer and take courses. But so, it was fun because then, at 40, whatever, I got a Harvard experience. So it's, and it was hard. I've since then taken other courses in counseling at other schools at really prestigious local universities. And I can tell you, they're not as hard as Harvard. So Harvard really is harder. It was hard.
And the bar is high because you're surrounded by people that are high. So even if it's not hard, you still want to distinguish yourself among your peers that you're studying with. Well, thank you for sharing that. I remember when you burned it down and then said, I'm going to Harvard, and you had a sweatshirt on your social media. It was a very exciting moment. And I know also it was important for your daughter to see that it doesn't matter if you are 18 or 41 or however old you were, you can try to chase this stuff.
She doesn't get it. She's 10, but she will. We're heading next week to commencement, and she's like, oh, do I have to go? And I'm like, listen, I know at 10 you think this is like so boring, but I promise you, when you are 30 and you look back and go, I watched my mom graduate with a master's degree from Harvard University, you're going to think it's cool.
Yeah. Just give it a couple of decades.
You're going no matter what, kid.
I want to switch gears and actually get into this area that you decided to focus on of resilience. And the way I want to go there is to address something that I know has come out of my mouth. I've seen it come out of friends' mouths. And I think you've even maybe posted on social media sometime or another, which is I am so tired of being resilient. Or why is it always on me to be the strong one and the resilient one? And what I remember, I think what you and I talked about a long time ago, even before you may have coined this term holistic resilience or started talking about that, is it's because everybody doesn't know what resilience actually is.
Right.
So talk to us about what we get wrong about resilience that makes us feel like, this sucks. Why do I always have to be resilient? I don't want to do this anymore.
So I did my graduate research. I did an empirical study on resilience. And so I have consumed enormous amounts of research on this topic. And I feel confident when I say that anyone who says, I am tired, I'm too resilient, I'm tired of being resilient, resilience wears you out. That is totally incorrect. And I hear that what they're saying is they're tired, but it's not resilience that is wearing them out. It is perhaps there's several things that it could be. Typically it's grit. And
which also is not understood worth a damn.
Right. And let me say that I am a huge fan of grit. I believe that grit is a component of resilience, but grit is just not resilience. Grit is when grit is the ability to dive deep. You've got a long-term goal and you're able to dive deep and meet that goal. Even when you're tired, even when you're not feeling it, you've got the grit to keep going. So grit can be very constructive and it can also be destructive because you can be gritty, you can dive deep and press forward when you really need to dive deep and lay down.
Right.
Resilience is very different. Resilience is the ability that when you hit, because let's talk about resilience. Let's take it out of a person and talk about a ball, like a bouncy ball. And I think you've seen this in one of my courses. I play a slow motion video and you see a bouncy ball when it goes and it hits the ground, it morphs, it almost flattens out if you're watching it slow motion. And then as it's going back up, it's that beautiful round shape right back out and it continues on. That's resilience, which is when you hit something in your life, whether it is a traumatic event, whether it's adversity, which is hit after hit after hit after hit, right? That you will absorb the energy of that traumatic impact, and you have the resources within yourself to bounce back up.
I think, you know what I think is really important about that? I thought this whenever I took your workshop where you talked about the bouncy ball. I think it's really important to note that you do switch shapes.
You do.
Because there's so much of the rhetoric, whether you call it grit, resilience, or something else, there's so much of this idea that you're in like a stable presentation of yourself. Like you're swallowing whatever is hard and presenting this brave face to the world. And like, I think people really can make these things very destructive when they don't understand them.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, grit, because my nieces went to a high school. No, I'm in the Kansas City area, Johnson County, Kansas, pretty affluent area, and they're in one of the good, in a good school district and a good high school, and they have these different character themes, and grit was one of them. And I swear that they did a very bad job of teaching what it was supposed to be to children of high school age. They may have understood it. It may have just not translated well, but both of my nieces would hear about grit and they would think it means that they just have to go hard forever. And perseverance is a component of grit for sure, but that is a lot about having a long view. It's not about pushing forward.
Right.
So
yeah.
Anyhow, that changing of shape
is the long view, right? For
yes.
Sure.
That changing of shape that's allowed. Like you're allowed to get knocked in the face and be flat for a minute. But what I'm hearing you say is that resilience is about how quick can you get back to the sphere-shaped ball and move forward. Is that right?
Yeah, resilience, all resilience is health and wellness, being healthy and well. Like that's it. So there's no such thing as being, I'm just too healthy. I'm just too well. There's no such thing.
Right.
All resilience is a result. And you're not there. There is no being too resilient, because resilience is just facing something hard and having the tools
to deal
with it and move on.
Yeah.
Healthy.
So you talk about, I had another question about the old model. Who is getting the most screwed by this old view of resilience that's actually some weird combination of like bastardized grit, way too much hustle, and way too much tenacity behind a stoic face? So who's getting the most screwed by this in our society?
I mean, I think everybody is. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, I know, because it's a waterfall effect, like it's a domino effect, because, initially, I would say, oh, it's high achievers, which, I have a passion for high achievers, people pleasers, those sorts of people that are just, have this ability to power through, and they're getting the most screwed. But really it's everyone, because when they're not doing well, then everyone they affect and touch is not going to do well. So
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that bothers me is like there are definite problems that hit one gender more than other genders, but there's a lot of narrative that some of these things related to grit and resilience are more applicable to women, or like it gets painted with the "this is for women" brush, and we're not focusing on teaching men resilience in many cases. Which is a problem.
Yeah, there's actually a whole body of research on something called skin deep resilience, which we can get into, that has actually shown that there is less resilience, in in more men even. So I don't concentrate on the gender because I've seen it, and there's research to support lack of resilience in both genders. But yeah,
I think there's a safety thing. So my observation, and no, I do not have Harvard University data. I just have 10 years of coaching. My observation is that men often feel less safe to express anything about their struggle. And part of being able to figure out how to navigate the struggle is to be able to name it and ask for help. So that's a concern.
So to that point, I'm going to get into why I call resilience holistic resilience. And
Let's go there.
That's going to answer this question.
I was just going to ask you about that. What is it? What the heck is this fancy term, holistic resilience?
Holistic resilience is classically, resilience is defined only psychologically. So for a plethora of studies, when resilience has been studied, it is whether or not someone goes through a traumatic event and has anxiety, depression, or PTSD. And if they do not have anxiety, like clinical levels of anxiety, depression, or PTSD, then they're considered resilient. Period. Move on. End of story.
That's narrow.
So that's it. But that is, when I mean the plethora of studies, the vast majority of all resilience research is on psychological resilience.
Okay.
Now, there is another body of research under a field called psychoneuroimmunology. And under this body of research, and health psychology as well, that draw correlations between traumatic events, adversity, especially in childhood, but it can be at any age, but especially in childhood. They draw these correlations to adverse physical effects, autoimmune disease, metabolic syndrome, cancer, so on and so forth. Okay. So you've got a body of research that says, hey, when you have all of this trauma, there's a probability that you're going to have these physical, poor physical outcomes.
Body keeps the score stuff.
Sort of, not 100%, but sort of. Okay. That's we'll just say sort of. The title works for it.
Sure. We'll do that. I've read the book. I know what you mean. So you've got a body of research that says resilience is if you don't have anxiety, depression, and PTSD, you're resilient. Then you've got, but we're not really worried about physical. Or if in that research they're looking at the physical component, they're going, oh, and now because you have anxiety, depression, and PTSD, now you have also these physical issues. Okay. Oh, so they don't look at the reverse of if you heal some of the physical, you can.
Right. So
they only look at it one way.
Yeah. For
one direction.
Lots and lots of studies. Then you've got all these other studies that are looking at this as an outcome, right? As adverse physical effects as an outcome. So when I started doing my research, I was like, okay, I think we're missing something big here. And I think from my, consuming research and doing the study that I did, what I believe, and there is more research out that supports this, is that when you have a traumatic event, you endure traumatic events, you endure adversity, that you're probably not getting a free ticket out, right? And there are two pathways here. It can, without processing those traumatic events, the adversity that you endured. And when I mean adversity and traumatic events, I don't always just mean big T, rape, abuse, trauma. War. I'm also talking about what we would consider complex trauma, which can be neglect, other types of, traumatic experiences. So there are two pathways, right? If you go through all of this and you don't process it and deal with it, then you're more than likely either going to have psychological effects, anxiety, depression, PTSD, or you cannot have these and only have the physical effects, which was me.
Okay.
I had a pretty traumatic childhood. I never had clinical levels of anxiety, depression, or PTSD, but I had autoimmune disease since I was 12 years old. And so there is research on this topic called skin deep resilience, where clinicians and researchers would notice that certain folks would, and it tended to present in folks that had overcome. So it was in high achievers, it was in high intellect, where folks would be psychologically resilient, but they would be a physical mess. And so back to your question on, a lot of men won't necessarily, they don't feel comfortable, talking about their emotional issues. What I am trying to bring awareness to is that you don't have to have any psychological issues.
They don't even have to exist.
It's not like you don't have to be anxious and depressed and have PTSD to then be physically sick. You can just be sick, and that sickness can be rooted in traumatic experiences and adversity.
Oh, hot dog. Wow.
And so holistic resilience is being resilient both psychologically and physically.
Okay. So thank you for unpacking that, because I've been like you and I have talked off and on about this, and I think I just had and it's only physical for some people. I don't think I realized that's what you were doing. So I'm really glad I had you on the show today. I learned something from you. So you talk about 4 H's of holistic resilience. Mm-hmm. Can you unpack quickly what those 4 H's are?
Yeah. So through my own research and consuming, again, hundreds and hundreds of studies, themes arose, right? And so to build resilience holistically, you have to focus on, I call them the healthy 4 H's: a healthy head, healthy heart, healthy hands, and I explain that, and healthy human connections. So healthy head is healthy cognitions. So it is learning how to regulate your thoughts. Not having the monkey mind, learning not to overthink, not think worst case scenario. So having a healthy mind. Okay. Healthy heart is what we would, talk about when we talk about our emotion. So learning how to regulate our emotions, and spirituality is part of a healthy heart. Spirituality is a huge component to resilience. Meaning and purpose, huge component to resilience. Healthy hands. So hands represent the body. And another component to resilience is physical health, activity, being physically active, making sure that you drink enough water, which is tough for me. I have to, really work on remembering that. And just, focusing on physical health, and then healthy human connection. Many studies show that social support is important. But what is the most important is not just that you have someone to call when you need them, is that you have someone who is healthy to call when you need them.
Yes.
So it's not just having, oh yes, I've got a family that I could call anytime I needed anything. But if every person that you call every time you need anything complains about themselves nonstop, they're just not a healthy human connection.
Or even if they're not negative all the time, if you feel like somehow you have to manage them a little bit. Like, for example, one of the things that I've talked to people about is they say, well, you're having the surgery in July. Is your mom going to come up and take care of you? And I get along beautifully with my mom, but she's also 82 and she just went through her own bout with breast cancer, which, like, as of the last scans anybody had, like, everything is good. But for me, I would almost feel guilty trying to have her take care of me because, like, she's been through some stuff. And you see what I mean? So that doesn't necessarily, that's a person that can fill certain needs, but not others.
Sure, absolutely. She might be a healthy connection from an emotional standpoint, but you need also another healthy connection from a physical standpoint.
Yeah. I'm reminded of our friend that had heart surgery 2 years ago, and their sibling lived in Canada. So it's like he needed the sibling for kind of that heart family connection, but he needed an advocate in case something went crazy in the US based hospital. So I was, entrusted with the job of being a bulldog for similar reasons. So that's a really good, thanks for that example. I want to turn a little bit to the Enneagram.
Okay.
So first off, a lot of people on the show are not very familiar with the Enneagram. You're the first, I think this is the first episode actually I've talked about it at all. Can you give the really quickie, what the heck is the Enneagram? I sometimes tell people it's the one with the numbers. And then they'll go, oh yeah, I know what that one is. But tell us a little bit about the Enneagram.
So the Enneagram is at its most basic, its least effective function, okay, a personality typing tool.
Thank you for the least effective in that.
Least effective function. Its most effective function is it is a tool of soul development, personal transformation development, like lifetime work. So what the Enneagram is it has ancient origins, and I will not go into the history of it because that is another hour. But it was from recent. I'll put like since the 70s and 80s when it was introduced into what we know, like this current culture,
the modern iteration.
Perfect. The modern iteration. It started out with just mostly personality sort of typing that that a lot of actually priests would use to do counseling. Like when a parishioner would come to them, they didn't necessarily teach the parishioner about, hey, you're an Enneagram 4, you're an 8, or you're this. It was, they used it to know how to direct that person through transformation.
Got it.
You're going to see my cat. And
I apologize.
She's 21 and she gets to do anything she wants.
She can do whatever she wants. What's her name?
Luna Maybell.
Hey, Luna.
And she wears Maybell. And so on its most basic level, you can type your personality. So what? You know what your personality is. Great. What the Enneagram does that no other personality typing tool does is then it helps you transform out of ego and into wisdom.
I love it. And I don't know nearly as much as you because you've done so much study of it and masterminds and all kinds of things, a year-long program, if I remember right. The thing that I like about it is that it gets into motivations. Because most of the personality assessments of any kind are based around behavior. They're not based around the why behind the behavior. And I think that's critically important. If I ever invest time in really deep diving into another, let's just call it a thing, not a personality tool, it's going to be the Enneagram, because I think we do not as a society pay enough attention to the why behind why people operate the way that they do.
Yeah.
So you are going to incorporating the Enneagram in some of your health coaching and therapy work. Yes.
Yeah.
How does that actually show up for a person? If a person is kind of new to working with you and they're new to the Enneagram, how does that show up in their work with you as a health and wellness coach?
Well, I mean, I first ask them if someone's just not on board with doing Enneagram work, then they're just not on board with it, and we don't. But I explain that it's a shortcut, because if I'm able to dial into your core personality, what motivates you to do the things that you do and think the things that you think and feel the things that you feel, then we can get to the healing phase much faster. But If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it, right? But what I do is I don't do assessments. There are assessments out there. There's some really great assessments out there, actually. The
There
problem
didn't used to be.
Yeah, there didn't used to be. The problem, though, is no matter how great the assessment is, and there's still there are great assessments, but they're only as great as you are honest. And when it is asking you about your motivation, the problem is that so much of our motivations are subconscious, and you just don't know. I mean, you can be as honest as you believe you know. You can answer honestly, consciously.
Right.
But if there's an unconscious motivation,
it's not that you're being dishonest, it's that you're incorrect.
So I'm going to give you an example. For Myers-Briggs, I took the I'll remember for years, every time I would take the Myers-Briggs, I would be an ENTJ. Okay. ENTJ. Because a lot of times the questions would say, you know, what do you value? Basically, when the questions will say, what do you value, feelings or logic? I would say logic.
Yes.
I value logic. I value logic.
Yeah.
You know, what do you value? You know, organization, or just kind of go with the flow? I value organization. Now, if you looked at my life, you saw that most of the decisions I made were made out of emotion, and my life was totally disorganized. I was, and always have been, an ENFP. But when the question is, what do you value? I did not understand that.
You were valuing the thing that you craved that you couldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the definition of value. You know, it was like in my heart, I valued it. I wanted to be it. I just wasn't. And so I had mistyped myself forever because I was, you know, putting down who I wanted to be. And
that's a good point.
And so Enneagram work is great because you have to dial into motivation. And usually usually, not for every number, but usually when you really land in your number, you kind of don't want it. Because
I was horrified.
Because your number, you know, because it's kind of all the bad stuff about you. I mean, there's good part. Don't hear me, you know, like, but it brings to light, you know, all of the hard parts of you.
Yeah.
And so if you do the work with the Enneagram, then it offers you a path of transformation. You know, Enneagram work has this is your core, yeah, and this is how you can grow in wisdom and transform and be a better you. And other personality, if it's just purely a personality typing tool, it doesn't offer. It's not just about, hey, here's what you're good at, here's what you're bad at. Focus on what you're good at. Work on what you're bad at. Thumbs up. This is it's deeper spiritual work. Really.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it, and I like you and I going through it when I first found out mine, which I originally did from an assessment that I'm sure had the psychometric integrity of a BuzzFeed quiz. But later on, when I went and read and really dug into it, it turned out it was right. I came up as an Enneagram 8, and our fellow 8, Terry, was like in the group, like all of us were basically Enneagramming during the pandemic in our mastermind. And he puts up like all these people that are horrible. He's like, oh, you're an 8. And he didn't tell me he was an 8. Oh, you're an 8. And then he lists off like Stalin. He puts Barbara Walters and like Mark Cuban later in it, but he just is kind of persnickety. So he leads with the evil dictators. And then I found out
beyond 8, by the way. Let me just say that, you know.
What'd you say?
Which I would definitely put Stalin in the category of beyond 8. Like
I feel like malignant narcissists are hard to type.
That's a different.
They're hard to type, and also there's no way like Stalin typed himself on Enneagram and then told everybody. Like there's a lot of guessing in that. But I was horrified because so many of the people that the interwebs told me were 8s were just awful. And I wasn't necessarily in a great place. I had just left corporate. I was super burned out from trying to be resilient / gritty. And one of the things I was questioning about myself is that I've always had a contrarian streak to me. And I'm always the one, like, whether you call it devil's advocate, contrarian, like whatever that is, like I'm not just falling in line with whatever. I'm using my brain. I'm poking at things to look at, if you think this, like, can we inspect this other option over here as well? That's just who I am. And for a long time, that was a problem because people don't like that. Mostly they want you to shut up and color, especially when you're in corporate America. And I was very unhappy. And now I think I could go back. Not that I want to. I think I could go back into corporate America. And now I know this about myself and I would know what to do with it. And there was a lot of misconceptions. Like I was told, oh, well, no wonder you're a control freak. And I'm like, am I though? Well, yes. Like I was in a really unhealthy place. But that's not what it's about. Like an 8 doesn't have to have control. An 8 just doesn't want to be controlled. 2 totally different things. So
yeah,
it's really helpful. And it actually, looking at the Enneagram actually helped me with therapy. And my therapist didn't know anything about Enneagram. Like I taught him some stuff about the Enneagram, but I had what was happening in our therapy. And then I had this knowledge I was acquiring. It was kind of like a cheat code. I think it sped some things up for me. So anyhow, very cool.
I love it.
Well, I'm going to go into like a slow lightning round. I feel like it's never really lightning. But I call it the lightning round. It's not really a lightning round. And then we're going to let you tell people about your cohort, your resilience cohort that's coming up before we close. So first thing I wanted to know is, what is the worst piece of career advice you have ever received?
Oh, worst piece of career advice. It's okay for everyone to have a day job that you don't like, and you just need to get hobbies that you like on the side.
Right. That's and like a little bit of the boomer and Gen X belief that if work was supposed to be fun, we wouldn't call it work. It's
kind of so I've heard that many times. And hey, it's okay that you're in a job that you don't like. Just do it.
Get a hobby.
Go do what you need to do at work, make the money, and use the money to play hard. And that's how you'll have fulfillment in life.
Yeah.
And for some people, that I don't want to say that does not work for everyone. For
I know people that it works very well for.
People it works fantastic for. I was not one of them. I have to be aligned. I have to be passionate about what I do.
Yeah. I think also there's a continuum to that. It's not, on or off. Right. So for me, I have a model that I call the 4 cornerstones of an aligned career. And it's basically, is the work right for you? Are your leaders right? Is your environment, like how your work and your life work together, right? And is the culture right? And all of that's amazing. And if you can check all 4 boxes, that's great. But a hell of a lot of people are never able to fully check all 4 boxes, and that's fine. But what I tell them is check as many as you can. If you have to take a job where you're only checking a couple of the boxes, you might want to keep looking instead of just deciding this is my life now.
I like that.
And then if there's just one little, couple little things, then go look outside for that. I also think that another thing I talk about on the skills side is sometimes the thing that you want to do next, the only way for you to build a skill is to do something outside your day job. That's not the same as let's be complacent about your day job. That's just, again, a cheat code. So what is a personal habit you've developed that helps you be successful?
That helps me be successful. Yeah, I would say meditation.
Same.
And I call it contemplative prayer, but it's the same, it's same thing as meditation. But instead of I will do like guided meditations from time to time, but I do a daily sit where I literally sit, and I empty my mind and my heart. And when a thought comes in, I let it go for 20 minutes. And when the timer's up, I get up, and that's it. It's just, It's just kind of a rest for
the brain. I don't do well.
everything.
I don't do well with trying to do it with no sound. And this is something I've actually been studying because the surgery I'm having is to remove a pituitary tumor and they want me to have brain rest. And I'm like, hello, I have a sash that says overthinker behind me. Like, how easy is brain rest going to be for me? But what I've been learning is things like guided meditations, instrumental music, or doing art. Like, I'm going to get my piano tuned, are kind of the counter to the constant thinking that my brain loves to do. So
I'll talk to you more about doing a sit later, though. It's okay. For 8.
I will challenge myself.
I will say for 8 is a number that it's one of the hardest. And I will say that when I see an 8 actually consistently do a sit, it's more life-changing for them than any other number.
I feel like a gauntlet just got thrown down a little bit. So we'll definitely talk about that. What is something you've changed your mind about recently?
Oh, goodness.
That's my Adam Grant question. I stole that from his podcast.
Oh, I mean, I change my mind about things all the time. If there's I am always open to having my mind changed if there is enough evidence to support that. And I can't think off the top of my head of like a thing that I have changed my mind about, but I don't have a problem doing that.
You just think of it as a way of life, that you're gathering information and you can change your mind.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I want evidence. I really do. That's a big deal for me. It's not like when someone is like, hey, this is someone will, talk about a diet. Let's say it's keto. And they're like, gosh, I feel the best I've ever felt. Keto is the best thing in the world. And I'm like, well, great. I'm not changing my mind on not eating fruit based off that one person. But when I see evidence, for example, in how certain people with certain treatment resistant epilepsy, treatment resistant schizophrenia, bipolar have had enormous transformative changes by eating a medical keto diet, my mind's changed, right? On saying, oh, well, keto works for some people, right? It's not all bad.
There are circumstances where it's good.
Right. So I'm always open to having my mind changed. It's just not going to change on a whim.
Yeah. Cool. What is a common misperception that people have about your work as a health coach?
Is that I'm a cheerleader. And I have unlimited positive regard for my clients. I'm going to start by saying that. And that is kind of cheerleader-esque. And I'm really honest with them too. And so I am not, health coaching is not just hey, we're going to show up and talk about your goals. And I'm going to be like, rah, rah,
Did you follow your macros?
Did you follow, whatever you want to do. We're going to get down to some, hard topics sometimes. And because if you're really serious about moving the needle, I'm serious about helping you get there. So it's not all about cheerleading. So because a lot of people are like, listen, I don't need a cheerleader. I'll get that. I've gotten that several times. I'm like, don't worry, buddy.
No problem. I think there's a big difference between being a cheerleader and being an encourager.
Yeah.
And I operate on the Dr. Brene Brown, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So I have been blessed in my 40s and now I'm 50. I've somehow got installed better ways to say things that I used to club people over the head with, which is very helpful in my work. So Well, thanks for going through that and for telling us so much about holistic resilience. I want to now, before we close, I know you're working on a cool new cohort program that you're planning the first one right now. It goes live. It starts its first week in a couple of weeks. Tell us about this program and how people can learn more about it.
Sure. It's called Holistic Resilience for High Achievers coaching program. And it's a little different. The classes that you've taken with me in the past have been, like 6 to 8 week. You show up on Zoom and you learn material and that's it. And this is different. It's an actual cohort where it's a coaching program where we're still going to show up on Zoom. I'm going to deliver material. I'll record it if you can't come. For 8 sessions. So it's 16 weeks. You're going to have a Zoom class every other week. And then on the opposite weeks, you get a one-on-one coaching call with me.
Cool.
And where I teach you in the class, and then we're going to work on, you're going to get to pick some areas of where you need to do some more work, personal work on resilience. I've got assessments that I give you. We talk about what that is. And then in our one-on-one, we talk about what I need to do to help you and what you need to do to help you to cultivate resilience. So that's the difference. It's not just a class. It's just not one-on-one coaching. You get education because I'm a teacher. You get education and then you get one-on-one coaching. And then there's also a WhatsApp group because it's a cohort. And I remember healthy human is our number 4 pillar. And so we've got a WhatsApp group so that all the folks in the cohort can have discussions whenever they want. If you want to, and then I'm going to get in there and answer questions weekly too, but you can build resilience alongside of other healthy humans.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This is, when I first decided I was going to start this, I had a list a mile long of people because we know so many high quality people that can help others make work feel good. But you're at the top of the list, both because of your wild career transitions and because of what you're actually helping people with in the area of resilience. So I appreciate you coming, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you.